up a verbal.
No, why not?
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
I have been and always shall be your friend.
And yeah, we've got a big episode. It's the one we've been waiting for. We've got the finale of Picard to talk about and the premiere of Strange New Worlds. So I've got so far as to say this is last Thursday rather, when they aired, was the most anticipated day in New Trek history. It's got to have been. I mean, it's not a big finale and a premiere on the same day.
Yeah, there was a big build-up before we got Discovery, but I think this was bigger.
I mean, it used to be the sort of what's kind of referred to as the kind of golden age of Star Trek was when you had Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager kind of around the same time and overlapping and all this. Now to have all this Star Trek, it's got to be the platinum or whatever you like to call it age of Star Trek. Just there's never been more Star Trek at any one time in production. Glorious.
Yeah, and I thought they were both really good episodes as well. So, I mean, obviously, we're especially into it, but
I especially love Picard, I've got to say. And I did really like Strange New Worlds, but there's some bits in Strange New Worlds which I do have some issues with.
Picard was my favourite out of these two this week.
Yeah.
I seriously think that if they have this situation again, they should do a week apart. I don't think it's a good idea having a big season finale, especially when you've had such a good season as Picard. And then you're going into launching a new show because you're gonna come away because you're gonna watch them back to back. I did, and sure you guys did. Mm-hmm. You watch them back to back, and immediately you're gonna have a favourite out of the two of them.
And guys, which order did we do it in? I went Picard, then Strange.
I did Strange New Worlds first.
You see, I thought I'd seen that you said that. Why would you do that in such an insane order? You finish off your main course, then you go on to your wonderful dessert.
Because when I got home, it was new to Star Trek.
I was just so excited.
In my head, that was a no-brainer.
Oh, to me, it was a no-brainer to in the other order because it's like you finish off the best series of Star Trek ever. I'm going to say it, which was the last series of Picard, and then you go on to your new voyage with Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, it was just.
How about you, Jim?
It was because.
Yeah, I went Picard, then Strange New Worlds, because I generally tend to do that. Like when it was Discovery and Picard, because Discovery had started first. I did the Discovery first, then the Picard.
You know, I mean, I might have done it the other way around if it was episodic as opposed to a long form story, or if it was like midway through the series as opposed towards the end. Mm-hmm. But like certainly like I had to finish off the Picard story first. I had to know how that ended.
I got home just before 5 from work, and I could wait till 6 o'clock to watch Picard.
Oh, I'm telling you, the day of polling, which I was working on the election polls last week, day of there, sitting there for like what was it, 15, 16 hours. Oh my God, I was just counting down the seconds to sweet Star Trek time. And I watched, like, Picard, I was pretty lucid for. I must admit, the first airing of Strange New Worlds, I was a bit, like, more sleepy, but I watched it again the next day, and yeah, great stuff.
Did you do some polling vote dumps? Because we saw that Labour came in Southampton.
Yeah, so I was working those polls.
Did you have your bag under the table?
Do you know what? The amount of people who, first of all, the biggest joke that you get all day is, oh, that looks like a shred. Is it? Are you shredding our votes? No. It's probably that like design of that box predates the shredder for a start. But anyway,
yeah.
And then you do get a few people. There was someone who was joking, but I think they were joking, but they were really deadpan. They were saying it's like, oh, so you hiding the votes, and then they made a joke about Antifa. So I was pretty sure they were joking by the end of that. But For a second, you couldn't tell. Like they were very dry with their wet. But it was really cool because it's the closest I've ever been to my house doing the polls. Sorry, we'll get back on Star Trek in a second. But it's
Yeah,
like
we'll
6 minutes walk away from my door. And so it was like all my neighbors were coming in, including some from like, there's literally some neighbors next door I've never met because they were extra cautious during the pandemic and everything. And it's the first time I met them. I just saw the house number and go, I'm your next door neighbor. Oh yeah, like you tried to drop off some flowers, but we're being really careful. And so I'm really sorry that we didn't answer the door to your partner. It's like, no, it's fine, it's fine. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
there you go.
Anyway, back on Star Trek.
On with elections. So yeah, Star Trek. Let's start with Picard then.
Yeah.
And obviously last week we talked a lot about what we were expecting in the finale, what things needed to be wrapped up. I think we got some of it right.
To be fair, I think got quite a lot of it right.
Yeah. And there were also a lot of surprises, which we'll get on to.
Huge surprises, like
huge surprise, and they didn't ruin it in the titles. They finally learnt.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, there was no guest star credits in the titles that could have spoiled it. So
yeah,
it was just so wonderfully formed that you felt like the stuff you guessed, which seemed really obvious it was going to happen, did happen, and kind of like as it should, because there was no other way of doing it really. But there was so many bits you didn't see coming. I thought it was just a wonderful surprise. Also made you feel clever because you guessed some of it as well.
Which is a really nice mix. To be fair, it did call quite a lot of it about halfway through the season.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It wasn't.
I think you can get a big thumbs up for calling the season how it was going.
I feel like some elements of it, like Jurati being the Borg Queen, I don't think was meant to be a revelation. Like, I don't think they thought they were fooling anybody with it.
They thought that, like episode 6 or something, they'll all get that if they haven't by that stage.
So it doesn't ruin the episode that you've already figured that out. And I think that was intentional. And yeah, there were a few other bits and bobs. So let's go through it. So
can I just quickly say that? I mean, Elliot definitely does deserve a prize for calling it so early, some of the stuff. But
yes,
I think most of it, the time which you got it was about when the writers expected you to. But again, I like that kind of thing. It's almost like, it lets you feel a little bit clever, but then they've got so much in reserve to reveal that it's just, I just thought it was really nicely done.
Yeah,
I agree. So, we wrapped up, actually, the rocket launch pretty quickly in the episode. And the mystery of the two Renees, I'm not even sure really why they threw that out there, because Picard and Tallinn work out what that means immediately as the episode starts.
Oh, it's the moment where he gets a look in his eyes and then shoots it over to her, and later Picard. Oh, that was such a sweet moment, because she's already got it the second
she got it straight away, and it took him a couple of seconds, and he looked over and he saw straight away she already knows what she's off to do.
Yeah, and that was it.
Beautiful. And just that second between them realizing was just enough to create a wonderful moment there.
Yeah, it was really good. And it shows like that Tallinn seems to have got Picard sussed out pretty well to say they've not known each other very long. She does seem to have a good hand. I suppose she's been through a lot with him, even in this short.
To be fair, with things that we learn later in the episode, she has maybe been briefed on him.
Yes,
I was going to say maybe also like he just reminds her a lot of his great-great-grandmother or whatever, like Renee is to him. And maybe they're just similar personality types.
It has been sort of quite effective the way they started off this season setting up like the potential romance with Laris. But then we've sort of done that romance by proxy, having the same actress and having Picard develop affection for. I don't think there's a romantic thing with Tallinn, but do you know what I mean? It's like,
I got a vibe of that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but that's going to be creepy, isn't it? When he goes back and sees Laris again.
This is something which I think we did mention in an earlier episode. The idea. So this is something we did sort of mention in an earlier episode. Are they going to do this thing of him sort of falling in love with her, then going back to the other? Not Tallinn,
Laris.
Well, Laris. Are they going to do that switcheroo? And they kind of did. It really did feel like they got the emotional build up with one of them, and then it paid off with the other one. It felt like a bit of bait and switch, but I think they got away with it. I don't know why, but it felt like they did. It felt quite organic at the same time.
I'm happy with it. I do think they, as you say, kind of got away with it, but it is a little bit weird. It's like Elliot says when he goes back and goes, well, I had a bit of a thing for your great-great-grandmother, and now
it basically should be as creepy as the end of Big, which if you watch that film back, it's really entertaining as ever all the way through. But it's at the end when he becomes a boy and then waves back at the girl he just had sex with, like the woman. It's like, and she's just, oh, it was him. Like no, you should be really creeped
that
out
explains things.
Oh, so I slept with a 10-year-old. Egg on my face.
It's a little bit weird, isn't it?
It's things that you couldn't do nowadays.
I think the fact they're all grown-ass adults helps this one, definitely.
Yes, this doesn't quite go into that area, but anyway. And then, Picard jumps through the thing with but like you said, Dr. Squee on our chat, he didn't say surprise like Gillian Taylor does.
You're going to throw every other reference to Voyager. Why not? Why not?
Yeah, missed a little trick there, unfortunately. And then another one you pointed out was when it shows sort of zooming into the Jupiter mission, it's kind of like a reverse of the Next Gen opening sequence, because that does starting at Earth and leaving the solar system, whereas this was...
And the planets are even same color and everything, and it really... I'd be amazed if that wasn't a purposeful nod to the Next Generation credits.
I think there's a lot of things that they've put in here that are Easter eggs all over.
Yeah, that was just so delicious.
They've been doing it all season, haven't they? So why wouldn't they?
And one thing I will say, just because I'm bad at forgetting things like this, is because I don't think always musically necessarily. I think more of the drum and stuff. But the music they use so cleverly here, they had every single era of music which has ever been associated with from the original series to the movies. They had a bit of the First Contact score near the end, and it was so beautifully used. I just want to give a nod to the people who did the music and chose to have those callbacks, because they never felt forced or anything, which it could do. It was just so organic.
Like they were used in the right places.
Yeah, and it was telling the journey of Picard somehow through this music, which has followed him through the TV and movies.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was really, really like you're hearing that little bit of the First Contact one. I thought was really nice.
Yeah, I didn't know I was going to get so stirred hearing that, but I really did. It was so beautiful.
The First Contact scar. The First Contact one, but
yeah. I agree.
Good line from Picard earlier on. Like I like it when he's realised what Talon's going to do, and she says, "Well, would Jurati have any reason to lie to you?" And he says, "Thousands." She's bad luck. But she wasn't lying to him, so there we go.
Yeah, the Borg Queen would maybe have reasons, but Jurati wouldn't.
Yeah, I think at this point there's still, how much of Jurati is it? How much of the Borg is it? I don't know. And when the Seven and Raffi and Rios go to Soong's lab, I love the fact that Seven's just ready with a knife just to go. And they can hear him round the corner, and she's just going to go in and knife.
She's disappointed when he's not there.
And he's done the classic leaving a tape, well, not a tape recorder in this case, but pretty much of it just playing away so it can be.
There's nothing wrong with going for a trope if it works.
No, exactly. It's a classic trick. I like Last Action Hero with Arnie, where he's got the tape recorder and he just puts it on when his ex-wife calls, and it's just going, yeah.
Actually, if you look in the background of Soong's lab, you'll see a bed there which has got a few pillows underneath the mattress. So
that's his trick.
They just didn't see it.
Yeah. And he's left some drones. Instead of having a big space battle, instead we get he's launching these drones to take it down, we find out that's his backup plan.
And we have seen these drones previously, that he has very good control over them. Yeah, because they had the shield over...
oh, of course they did. Oh, yeah.
What's her name?
Corey.
Yeah,
you're right.
I really loved, and also Reyes having fun with like, you always get one scene, it seems, where it's like someone has to play about with a game controller, basically. And this was that scene.
Yeah.
Like the only one I really hate is when they use a very obvious joystick like they did in Insurrection.
I was hoping for that because you've got Rios going, I need manual control. Give me manual. I'm like, give him manual. Bring him.
Yeah.
You know what? Fair enough. If they'd done it here as a callback to Insurrection, I would have enjoyed it. But usually if they're just doing it off their own back as a new thing, it just looks so cheesy when it's a joystick. Yeah, because they didn't come up with anything better than a joystick over the years.
I mean,
we've got better than joystick now.
I mean, sometimes you do like, which Doctor Who is it? The Runaway Bride, where the Doctor gets a controller and it's blatantly an Xbox controller that they've stuck some stuff on, and you can just tell.
Yeah.
But you know what? The games console developers have spent years making this ergonomic design that's perfect for gaming. So I won't be surprised if Aliens stole that design because it works.
But that's the thing, the perfectly designed one, they didn't stop at the joystick, but like it seems we go back to the joystick whenever there's manual control.
But anyway, Rios has got, he just says it's analog control. He doesn't say specifically that it's manual, that it's a joystick or what have you. But anyway, he manages to do it. That's the important thing. And meanwhile, Sung, he's one of these where he turns up and they say, we'd have put the VIP boys on. I just want to shake hands with the astronauts. And it's only sort of second time you watch it, you're like, that's why he wants to shake hands with them.
Yeah.
Because he's got his...
Well, but it's that thing of like, my money doesn't buy me 5 minutes. It's like, it's launch day. Even if you had all the money in the world, no, it wouldn't. Like, she was really Easter game. Probably, though, again, that almost seems believable as well, though, because you do hear these things of like people getting on the White House lawn because just one person turned their back at the wrong moment. She's just obviously an easily manipulated woman.
Yeah.
That seems believable that there would be an easily manipulated person there.
And
so the protocol would be just lockdown on launch day.
Yeah. Like he's not put his money in until a couple of days ago when he funded the gala. Like, you'd be like, hang on, if you were really wanted to give us money, you could have done it before we were ready to go. To be honest.
He does play it deliciously though, like how outraged he gets at nothing, like just a typical rich white guy, basically.
That bit later on where he's just like, "Oh, I'm going to leave you here. In fact, I am going to leave you here," and he just pisses off. And it's again, you wouldn't let that happen, even if he's got loads of money. You'd be like, "You're not wandering around the base."
Yeah.
Yes.
When you're about to launch on your own just because I've annoyed you, like.
Also, did you feel a little bit like, like you said, he says, like, in fact, I will leave you now. It was almost like Spiner was letting out his Next Generation over the top acting, which I really enjoyed. It was just a little nod to it because his acting in this has been a bit more serious as the series demands. Like, I'm not saying anything against his acting in Next Gen. It was just more appropriate to the tone of that show. Whereas that was a little nod to that, and I really enjoyed the hell out of that because it just seemed like one of those.
Yeah, it was very.
It's fine. I have a bit of fun on this one.
And arguably, you could say, well, Sung is being very performative in that moment anyway, so it's not entirely out of place. Sung may not be the greatest actor. So
it's almost like someone if. Yeah, I had, funny enough, I happened to be listening to a podcast with Carl Urban, and he talked about playing Bones and how he had to get certain nods to DeForest Kelly because he's, as he put it, it's like, I'd be pissed off if I went to see Star Trek, and I saw Bones, and it didn't remind you at all of the original character, but you got to make your own. And it almost felt like that. It's like Brent Spiner is creating a new character, but you want little nods to the original performance that he gave.
And while we're talking about Carl Urban, if he set out to remind us of DeForest Kelly, he nailed it.
Yeah,
but it doesn't feel like an impression at any point. It just feels like a genius mix of new and old. Yeah,
he was brilliant. I think for me, probably he was the best one out of that cast in terms of evoking the original.
It's between him and Zachary Quinto. It's very hard to call between those two because they're both pitch perfect.
They were good.
Yeah.
So Tallinn then gets this nice scene with Renee where she sort of introduces herself, and there's a lot of it like it is relying on a lot of faith from Renee just to go, well, actually, I've been looking after you all your life, and you just need to accept that now because there's a geezer here that's going to try and kill you. So
Well, she starts off with like, "Oh yeah, your mate got sick. Like no one told you though," and it's like it was her just obviously making up on the spot.
Yeah,
and just
like, well, why are you wearing this suit?
And also bullshit. Like they wouldn't come up and tell me something like that. You know, I loved how obvious the lie was, and it was just her making up.
Yeah, and she rightly points out, like, she says, "Look, I know everyone who was on this mission. If they'd have subbed someone in, I know
the subs.
Get a random person."
And anyway, why are you wearing Marie's uniform?
Yeah.
Well, you see, the reason it does work though, this moment when it's like she's got so much that she's got to believe on the moment. I love the fact they kind of covered it with like, well, there were these moments where I couldn't help it. You saw me. I wanted you to see me. Like this happened. And also you kind of get the feeling where they follow them throughout their lives. There's a sense of someone being there. So it just all fit perfectly with a great leap of faith.
And also we have to assume as well that there is a scene we don't see where Tallinn activates the cloak. So that would sell you on it a little bit. If you just saw this person take on the visage of yourself, you'd be like, okay, there's obviously something going on here. So,
although as we get into the next scene, the only thing I would say, like I loved it. It was beautifully performed, beautifully written. But part of me did think it's like no one thought of maybe just beaming down from the ship like a sedative, or giving her a sedative to try on him first. Just give it a stab before he kills you. Just give a try.
Yeah, they could have done that, couldn't they? Yeah, she's very much like, I am going to die here.
Yeah. It's like you didn't think of discussing any other options. Okay, you can't take him out because he's important to future with Data and everything else that happens in his family line. But you can knock him out.
Yeah, give him a good kick in balls or something.
I mean, kick him balls. He could still get up and cause mischief. But knock him out. Try that. Give it a go before you die. Then if he kills you,
she could have had a hand thing as well. And when he took it off, she could have been like, but I've got this one and this one. Ew, this nullifies yours and does I don't know.
Can I also ask though, guys? Were you fooled? I completely was. I won't deny it. Really? I was fooled. Even when the ship was going, I was so in the drama of it because it was so well written.
Yeah.
That even when the ship was going off, I'm going, but how could they fire the ship without her on? They wouldn't do that. And that's the second they take down the thing. I'm going.
No, it didn't get me for a second. I was like, that's Tallinn.
Yeah, like had previously said last week that we expected Tallinn to use the cloak in some way.
I did. I just got so lost in the drama. Genuinely, I think that was it. I was just so invested in the moment. I was like, but they've killed her. Is that how they get to? Is that she takes her place on a mission or something? I thought maybe it was the other way around.
No, that's brilliant. Again, if it works, and it's another one of them. Like, it didn't fool me, but that didn't affect my enjoyment of that whole sequence at all. I was like, I see what they're doing here. And
I was kind of really pleased to be fooled. It was just such a wonderful moment when she dropped, and it's like I got that emotional hit. It was just wonderful. Again, usually having watched so much Star Trek as you guys have, and other sci-fis, you get used to the tropes. But this, I don't know, just something I got caught up in the moment. It was brilliant.
You were very tired. You'd had a long day at the pub.
I don't care. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being fooled. It's like, it's
good when you do get fooled. When you do,
Do you watch Penn and Teller Fool Us? Because people say
occasionally.
There's some people who misget it that they don't want to be fooled, like they want to get them because they feel. No, they enjoyed being fooled because it's a sense of wonder that they rarely get from magic now.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
They do magic and they can't work out how they've done this one trick.
With Penn and Teller, it must be amazing because they know, they know all the tricks. They've invented half the tricks, for it to get here. Yeah. No, absolutely. So Rios stops the drones then, and we get the scene. Picard gets to hold Tallinn as she dies. She does take the cloak off, and he says, "Look up to her," which has been sort of a motif of the season, hasn't it?
Yeah. So nice. And she talks about how beautiful this girl was, and like that. Yeah. That's such innocent love that she had for this person who she shepherded through their life, kind of like a parent. And it was just, it was such a beautiful moment. It really, I'm getting instead just thinking about it. I thought it was just
it reminded me a little bit of Snape's death in Harry Potter, because famously, sorry, spoilers for the last Harry Potter book if anyone's not read it. And you probably shouldn't now, or at least don't buy a new copy. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But Snape says to Harry at the last moment, he says, "Look at me," because Harry's eyes are his mum's eyes, and Snape was in love with his mum. And I almost got a bit of that from Talon, where she's like, "Oh, Renee had such beautiful eyes," and it's like, "But I'm looking in your eyes now, Jean-Luc." You know, it's not as in your face, but I've just got a little bit of a vibe of that. But yeah, that was all really good. The only thing, if we were being really, 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 really nitpicky, we could argue that there's a little bit of that Indiana Jones type thing, you know, the whole, well, if Indiana Jones hadn't been there, the same thing would have happened. Like, Picard doesn't actually actively do anything to make this launch go through. Talon does it all, and Picard...
She does everything leading up to it, though, to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
There is still a thing that if he was removed, it wouldn't work out as it was. And he also got Talon to take the chance. And
his previous actions certainly, but just in terms of the actual
beaming him with it, he doesn't actually do anything.
He doesn't. But again, that's not Picard's story, as we're about to discover. Picard.
But that's good that that's good that it does, just because the show's called Picard, he doesn't have to do everything. Discovery can take a lesson from this.
It's called Discovery, but it's Burnham, basically. I thought actually it does. You've just made me realize something I didn't think about before. It ties into the motif of the episode as well, because this episode's all about who you care about and not dying alone. So maybe the reason he was there is so she didn't die alone. That was his only person being there. And that, oh, Jesus, that's beautiful. Like, I didn't spot this before, and it ties in with the end of the episode.
Exactly like that. But yeah, Picard does a lot of comforting people so they don't die alone this episode. The rocket, then, and, you know, I just want to mention this. It's just the attention to detail, because there is a tendency at the moment by billionaires to make rockets look like penises. And this one doesn't look unlike a penis.
It looks like the SLS, actually.
There is a, how to describe it, helmet-like motif at the top of this rocket, and I feel like that's a deliberate reference to certain other rockets.
I think it looks very much like the SLS, which is what the rocket NASA has been working on.
Also worth noting, because we're all in our 40s and 50s here, our penises are about that color by now, so it's accurate in so many ways to our experience. Maybe a little less smooth, but you know, apart from that,
okay. And that's all right. That's all right. You know what I mean? Honestly, you can't take him anywhere.
I know.
Soon then gets his comeuppance because he sees a video of Renee from the ship. And that's his moment of realizing, they got me.
Yeah, they fooled me.
I made a mess of that. And then he pulls out the Project Can file.
After everything gets deleted.
Corey deletes everything, so all his work's good.
And that's why the scene which is just coming up is so beautiful, because otherwise you'd be like, well, he'd just track her down and kill her. Like, but it answers that before you can ask it.
It does, absolutely. And he pulls out the Project Can file. Now, a couple of things about this, because I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we get to Strange New Worlds, because I think we've done a retcon here. But when I first saw it, I was like, oh, Project Can, but Can should have already happened in the 90s. So is he pulling out an old project that he worked on before, and he's thinking of going back to them?
It does look like an old file.
And it does say funded in 1996. So they have done a callback to that.
Oh, nice. I didn't notice that.
But I also feel like what they're doing is recontextualizing that now and going, no, Can actually happened in the early 2020s now.
But I love the idea that it was funded in 96, so they can technically go, it was happening in 96, even though it wasn't happening. It's a nice little reference to it anyway.
I think we'll talk about it when we get to the history sequence in Strange New Worlds, because I think that gives us a lot more detail. But so we'll just put a pin in that for the moment. But yeah, it's a nice detail having the Khan thing. And then we get the big unexpected cameo. Unexpected, that is, unless you follow Will Wheaton on social media and lived in any part of the world other than America, because unfortunately,
the moment we say episode aired.
Yeah, unfortunately for international viewers, he wanted to get ahead of the story because it had already been leaked and put up his own feelings about it, which I can totally understand.
In all fairness, doesn't he still do that online show as well, which is directly after it? So we would have been talking about it.
But you can choose not to watch that. Whereas
that's true, but he probably felt like then everyone else would run with something that he wants to announce himself.
I'm going to be reasonable about it here. He didn't tweet anything until after the episode had aired.
No, exactly. It's one of them unfortunate things about a global...
I knew that I wasn't going to watch this until 5-6 o'clock at night because I'm working.
Yeah.
So I knew it had already been aired. I'm sensible enough with things like that not to go on social media or YouTube until I've watched it. It's not difficult.
And also, you do get, like, even if these stars aren't in it from other shows, sometimes Star Trek, like, actors go, "Oh, love this moment in this episode." They tweet about other Treks because they feel part of that family. So,
and that was the thing. And, like, I absolutely love that we get Wesley Crusher again. And even more so, I've just read Will Wheaton's new book, Still Just a Geek, which I think's been out a month or so. And reading that, he talks so eloquently and so in depth about how he felt about Wesley at the time and how he feels about him now and how much it means to him. And literally having finished that book a day before this episode airs, I was just absolutely made up for the guy. I was like, he will be so over the moon that he got to reprise this character in a way that was nice, that worked. And another thing, just one of those little bits of serendipity in the world. Like, he talks about in his book how his scenes were cut from Nemesis, apart from you can see him in the long shots at the wedding table. But he was a bit pissed off at the time. But at the end of the day, he was like, I understand why you have to cut things in films and fair play. But it's one of those. Had they not cut that scene, because in that scene with Wesley, they say, "Oh, Wesley, you've rejoined the academy and you're no longer a traveler," and blah blah blah. The fact that they cut that scene 20 years ago means he gets to do this, which is so much better. So it's just
also. I just want to add to that as well. I love that, not that he isn't doing a wonderful acting performance, but it feels like it's almost like it's Will Wheaton being Will Wheaton, but it works for the character as well. Like, because he's got this natural kind of like very poised kind of delivery style. He delivers everything very factually and slows it down and talks in this way, which is really interesting, but really ornate.
Enthusiasm to
and that was totally in the performance. I kind of loved that. It just felt like it fit Wesley or the Traveler now, but it didn't. Yeah,
and again, I might be reading more into it just because I have just read like his life story. So, but I do feel like this is Wesley, but dashed through with a bit of Will Wheaton because Will Wheaton himself has gone through a lot in his life, and it's taken him a long time to get to a place where he's comfortable with a lot of things that have happened in his life. And a lot of what was going on when he was playing Wesley informed that character. And so it feels like Wesley and Will Wheaton himself have been liberated. And I think you get that in his performance, and I think it's lovely.
I'll even throw out a couple of other parallels here. So you've got the fact that Picard, Patrick Stewart, has grown up so much over the years. Patrick Stewart's talked very openly about his experiences as a child with his dad being abusive, and with all these other things which he's gone through, which have fed into this version of Picard. And it fits that Picard and Patrick Stewart have grown up in the same kind of ways about these things. And then you've got Will Wheaton. I love the fact that not only, does it do that for him, but also I like the idea that because we do get those long shots in Nemesis of him there in uniform, I love the idea that Wesley, and now he's the traveler, still he made the time out of his schedule, which involves saving the universe on a daily basis, to go, no, my friends are getting married, though. I still have commitments. And he came back, and the idea that he came back in Starfleet uniform, I think is parallel to I think that's a parallel to Q going in Captain's uniform every time.
Yeah.
So Wesley's like, well, I will use this as an ironic nod to Q.
Yeah,
so I think you can even headcanon that into it.
You can. I mean, I always assumed once that scene was cut, I always assumed, no, Wesley became a traveller. He's still a traveller. He's obviously just popped in for wedding. And I was glad they cut that scene because, I mean, we've slated Nemesis for a number of things, but the writer of Nemesis, and this has been said by other people other than me, didn't care for Star Trek continuity, which is why you get things like Worf suddenly back in Starfleet, even though he was the Klingon ambassador. Even though it had made loads of sense for the Klingon ambassador to be there on a mission to Romulus. But never mind, we'll just put him. And I feel like he just did the same thing with Wesley without thinking about, well, what long-term effect does that have? And it's just lovely that scene got cut. And so we get this, which is awesome. And so that's obviously an incredible cameo. And the weird thing is, just before I watched it, I was talking to Chloe and I said, I'm going to watch the Picard finale. And she said, is it the last ever one? I said, no, there's another season. And they're bringing back the Next Gen cast. And I said, apart from Will Wheaton, because he's a traveller now, so there's no way they could bring Wesley back. And then after I finished the episode, I said, when I said there was no way they could bring Wesley back?
I also did love the fact that he goes, she goes, who are you? And he goes, that's a long story. She goes, I've got nothing in time. He goes, well, once I was called Wesley Crush and now I'm a traveller. That wasn't that long a story.
No,
really, it didn't take that long out of my day.
No, I mean, I'm sure there's more to it, but
it just made me laugh.
I think there is a real big trick in this one. They could have had another nice Easter egg because, when he starts telling about what he does, and she goes, "You're kidding." She should have gone, "Shut up."
No, yes, the famous "shut up." She said, "Shut
up." But you could have done it in a different style, but we'd have all just gone, yes.
But you also have the moment at the end where he beams out, and it's a very kind of iconic Star Trek beam out. I love the fact that he, as a traveller, uses something familiar to him to represent what's happening, even though it's not a beam. It's just
it might be a beam. See, it might not. She may not have the power yet. It might have to do something to it.
No, but the traveller could take Wesley.
As a traveller, or is he recruiting her as a watcher?
I think he said, "Welcome to the Travellers," but that could be the name of the
whole organisation.
And it did sound a bit like they were going to form a folk band.
It did a little bit. I'd be up for that. We know she can sing.
We were talking about this yesterday, me and James, and wouldn't it be nice if we now got a Travellers season as a spin-off?
I'd be up for that. Yeah.
You do away with the Section 31 show, because I don't think there's anybody who's really interested anymore. But you can still get Michelle Yeoh because she's been sent back in time. So they can go recruit her as a time traveller from another universe.
And it's also very lovely. Yeah, it's so lovely as well that basically, if it wasn't for the precedent of Gary 7, I don't know if I'd so easily accept the sort of magical thing of someone watching over someone, but it's already in Star Trek law, so you can get away with it. And you don't have to question it.
And what a great bit of continuity. And it feels a little bit fan fiction-y. It feels a little bit like what Greg Cox does a lot in his books, where he takes disparate elements of Trek lore and ties them together. But I thought it really worked here. Okay, we've got Gary 7 and we've got the Observers, we've got the Travellers. We're going to say that those two things are one and the same, and the Travellers are actually in charge of the
Travellers move through all space and time and send the Watchers to places in time that need sorting.
Absolutely works.
But it makes sense.
Yeah, but the fact that you've got an episode from 1967 and then an episode from 1987 when the Traveller was introduced, and somebody's just gone in 2022, you know what? Let's stick those two things together.
It'll work. It'll work really well, and someone will go in the office.
I just
think they're on about, and they've gone, trust me.
It sort of does feel like it should be too many kind of callbacks and references, but it just feels like something brand new. And they've just
anything. It neatens
It
up
neatens
chronology.
things up.
It's like we've got these two separate time traveling things. Let's make them one thing, and that'll it makes it less messy. We've got less omnipotent time traveling beings,
which makes sense of Gary Seven's cat as well now.
Yes,
that was actually probably a traveller that was with him.
Yeah.
No. The cat was one of the watchers.
No, Gary Seven was a watcher.
No,
person. But it makes sense that the cat now was a traveller.
Yeah, the cat could have had more powers. Yeah, absolutely.
Had the magic powers.
Yeah, the cat's actually doing an assessment on him as you go through that episode.
Yeah. So my pitch for the next series is, and whether they just do it as a limited series, whatever, it's Adam Sung getting involved in Project Khan, creating Khan, the start of the eugenics wars, and in the background you've got Wesley and Corey trying to keep history on track and trying to stop Adam Sung messing it up because he's now got knowledge of the future.
Well, to be fair, he has to have the eugenics wars. And
he does. But that's the thing. So you get that brilliant dilemma of the like, no, we and you could have Corey going,
you've got to have this, but it's got to be brought to an end here.
Yeah. So you can have Corey going, well, we can't let him create this guy that's going to subjugate half the earth. And Wesley saying, no, we have to. Otherwise, this will happen. But we can't let him do that because he's not.
But he can't have 51% of the earth. We have to stop him
exactly.
that.
Because Wesley says, don't he? He says, we've got to be very careful about where we intercede.
And the same thing was true in this series. I thought it was really great that, again, like I was saying, that you couldn't just kill Sung because he's who his ancestors are, if nothing else. So, not that they are really quick to kill in Star Trek, but it just added that extra complexity, which was really nice. It's not as easy as you can just take out this character and hope time doesn't mind.
And Wesley recruiting Corey is actually fixing a problem that Q's created because Q saved her, so she would have died. She should die in this timeline.
Yeah.
So
mind you,
taking her out of the timeline that she shouldn't be in.
That's the thing. It's like, are they repairing something Q did, or did they already know that Q would do this and they were there to? It's a wonderful kind of.
That's the question, but yeah. So back to the rest of the gang then. So they're back at Chateau Picard, and I like the fact that they start talking about, well, that's done. We haven't got a ship anymore. We're going to have to live here. So what do we do?
Oh, they'd already mentioned earlier. It's like the holes in the wall being the ones which he knew as a kid. That was a lovely little callback.
Yeah.
Sorry, just because we're at the chateau.
And so they're actually talking about, right, we're going to have to live here. We're going to have to stay out of history's way and everything. And we finally get Seven and Raffi kissing, which I said last week, come on, just give her a kiss. And
it was a nice one.
And they do now. So at least them two seem to have reconciled a little bit. And
I also like, does this mean we're together? Does it mean we're not? Just let it breathe, Raffi. Just let it breathe.
Yeah, I like that Raffi's sort of neuroses kicks in and Seven's just like, all right, calm down. And then, with the key. So it turns out this is pretty much what the whole season's been about. It's the point that Picard chooses to put the key back for himself to find in the future. And that's when Q appears and says, right, you've accepted yourself and everything. And, we were worried about, are we going to understand what Q was doing? And for me, it absolutely worked. It's this whole thing has been about getting Picard to go a little bit easier on himself.
Yeah, and you've been really hard on yourself over this one thing that your mother did. Yeah. That wasn't your fault.
And there's always been the suggestion of a warm relationship, like that Q feels something for Picard. They joke about it in All Good Things about it's been rather like a pet and its owner. And Picard gives the little eyebrow raise. Perfect. But it's already been suggested so much. And if Picard can grow in his time, like in all the eons that will have passed for Q in that time, surely he could have. And they even wrote the line, so it's like even gods can have their favorites, not favorites. So like I like to think that we're going to see a book someone's going to write where he visits Janeway first before he cuts.
Yeah,
that's going to happen.
See Janeway or Mariner. We got the impression that he knows Mariner quite well in that episode of Lower Decks that he appeared. So.
And he's also going to go to Cisco and just stick a finger up and go again. That's about what their relationship deserved.
It's going to be like when David Tennant regenerated and he went to see all of his companions before he actually succumbed to it.
Don't start me on that one. Don't start me on that one.
So,
I'm regenerating. I'm dying. I've got about like a week though to visit all my previous companions. Don't worry about it.
Isn't there a novelization of it? And he actually goes and sees every single companion, not just David Tennant.
So. If there is, I did not read it, and I feel like it would only anger me further.
Well, I believe there is, and I believe that's what happens in the novelization is that he absolutely every single one.
Like you can't take anything away from the first RTD era, as it'll have to be here henceforward known. But you can't take anything away from. However, he did like to indulge his kind of more florid side of storytelling sometimes, and I think that's one of the not the best examples.
I think they've done that with all the modern doctors. They've all had like a big speech to make. I wouldn't mind one of them just dying, and that's it.
The thing I liked about the one with Matt Smith was he had that big regeneration moment on the clock tower. Cool. Then he had had his little speech, and then it was kind of a snap regeneration. So he kind of got the best of both worlds. I thought it was well done. Yeah. Anyway.
So yes, back to Q then. So yeah, I love the fact that he is just giving Picard a gift. He's like, I'm dying alone. I don't want you to. And so that all makes, like you said, it's penance. Picard is paying penance for his own guilt. And it's also about forgiveness. And he said, it's not about the trap itself. It's about how you solve it. So this being Q, he knows that he can't just tell Picard, you need to forgive yourself for this. He needs to physically put him into a situation where he will have to work through it.
And it was both. It was both for him to work through it, and plus Q loves his little games. He just does. Like if he's going to die, he's going to have a little bit of a prank with Picard. I think there's certainly a side of that.
I love that even though, we're humanizing Q to a large degree here, there is still an edge to him, like where they say, oh, well, so many people have died. And he goes,
Yeah. And even like, if you go back to the Robin Hood episode in Next Generation, like, I think genuinely Q was trying to teach him something about love. And like, even though we may not agree with his message, I think that was so genuine. And so there's so much precedent for this now, but you couldn't have done this earlier in their relationship. It had to be now. And like even in All Good Things, there was a bit of warmth, but it wasn't to this degree. You couldn't have pictured them hugging at the end of All Good Things, but it fit beautifully here. Beautifully,
absolutely.
But that's it. It's like you've got to assume between All Good Things and here that there have been other encounters with Q because Raffi knows who he is.
I thought,
and Raffi was like Picard's first officer.
I assume Raffi had just read the briefings. I thought Picard had said something at some point that he hadn't seen him for all these years. Like in the earlier in the series. So I think it has been since All Good Things to now.
Right.
Which again sort of adds the poignancy of like, why is he, like he says at the beginning, it's like, I haven't got time for your bullshit now. Like it's because he's so much older, he can't be bothered with this.
But Q could have still been popping around seeing other people, just not necessarily Picard.
Well, he does because he sees Mariner and Mariner's, and that's set after. Lower Decks is set after Next Gen.
So that's the thing. This might be the last Q and Picard story, but it doesn't mean it's the last time we'll see John Delancey as Q.
No.
I think I will give a pitch there's a scene coming up where I've got a pitch for why I don't think Q's dead.
Oh. So basically Q's going to send them all home, but it'll take up all of his power. Rios does decide to stay. And I feel like, people are saying, oh, well, they don't care about the timeline, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like the little exchange that he has with Q justifies it because he says, oh, time's a funny thing. And Q says, yes, it is. And I feel like that's Q saying it's okay for you to stay.
But let me complete that, though, because he says, like, yes, it is. He goes, interesting. I think that interesting is speaking to, because there's nothing which pays off that interesting. They don't say.
To be fair,
refer to what the interesting thing is. I think him saying interesting is something like is a clue to like the fact that accused thought of something in that moment, and then when he dies, you don't see him die. I feel like if he was definitively dead,
we get the proof right at the end with Guinan's story, and Rios had to stay.
Yeah, Rios did have to stay in the past.
I agree with Rios. Yeah,
Rios is actually part of the timeline from here.
Yeah, you're right.
They've part of the timeline.
And they've done what they've done all the way through this series of perfectly nailing what I didn't like in the first series. Like, Rios wasn't that objectionable, but I didn't really get why I just didn't take to him. But I realized all they showed in the first series was his roguish side. You never got any other side to him. And this totally pays off the humanity underneath. He even refers back to it, goes, look, I was living in a ship with 6 different holograms on myself. Probably not helping.
Yeah.
And that really shows how they fleshed him out so much better here. Like, again, he still plays the rogue a little bit, but you've got the person behind it, and that's what they just didn't show us in the first series.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right, Q saying interesting, it does create a little escape hatch if they ever want to bring him
I just
back.
think there's something in that. There's just something that didn't quite feel like it was Q's death. Like, it was beautifully played so that you could get an emotion from it. But there was no actual death, and there was a few lines he said which were just like, are you saying something that I think you're saying there?
And I love the fact that Picard gives him a hug, and he says, no, you're not going to die alone. And he gives him a hug, and Q says, see you out there, and calls him...
And that's the sort of, does that mean Q is still going to see him?
I took that as him saying, I'll see you in the afterlife, whatever comes next. We'll see each other there, sort of thing. But
you see, my pitch for this is that it's going to be like I was saying this to you, James, or both of you in the group. It's like I think the next one is going to be the search for Q. Like, you're going to get the next generation crew together in an ironic search to find Q. And I think because we also don't know why he was dying. There was never addressed why he was dying or what happens the rest of the
just said that there was sort that it felt like he was moving on to another plane, a higher plane.
Yeah,
it feels like it, but they never addressed why that was happening, what's happened with the rest of the Qs. I think that's too open to not.
Maybe. I mean, for me...
I won't be sore if they don't go further, but...
No, for me, it's satisfying as it is. But if they do something really clever and amazing with it, I'm up for that. But
I'm the same.
But it's got to be clever and amazing.
Yeah, it has.
But they've won me that trust this season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, back to the Stargazer then. And the revelation, Jurati's the Borg Queen. She looks a little bit like RoboCop.
Yeah, I didn't love the way they did her face. I didn't love it.
It's the headpiece.
Yeah, it didn't look great at all.
But she's obviously, her head's so obviously CGI'd on. It just doesn't look
That was
clear.
it. It's like, why haven't you just done prosthetics? That's really weird. It turns out she's trying to stop a big wormhole thing.
Transwarp conduit.
Which turns out to be transwarp conduit. And this is obviously severely undercooked, but we're going to come back to this. This is your hook for season 3.
I would hope so, but it was like 10 minutes of a lot of things which just didn't really get explained. And like you say, it's probably leading to season 3, but it felt a bit unsatisfying after such a great episode.
She says, it's just a piece of a bigger puzzle and everything.
But you suddenly get... Sorry, I was just going to say, you suddenly get her appearing there. They suddenly have this anomaly, which we've had no prior knowledge of. You get Picard and the rest of the kind of crew just going, it's like, it's her, so brilliant, we'll trust her. No one else is going to question that at all, the fact that you're just handing over that entire fleet over to the Borg. That seemed a bit like, not one person in the fleet's going to go, hang on a minute, sorry, this is the Borg Queen.
They do kind of acknowledge that. They say that's why it had to be Picard, because they needed someone who was an admiral who had the authority to go, right.
I know, but like Picard's just got back into Starfleet, basically, and suddenly he's ordering around this fleet. And again, no one in any of those ships goes, hang on a minute, Borg Queen, sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Again,
I think there's sort of like a bit of time jumping in here that we're not seeing on screen. And I don't think it actually did a good job of portraying that there's time passing, because it's almost like there's a reveal like it's Jurati's the Borg Queen. and a minute later they've got to stop this wormhole. And I think there's little time jumps that should have been.
Sure, it did play like it was real time, but yeah, that may be the case.
Yeah,
Also,
there should
can
have
I
been
just throw in?
time jumps, sort of like, right, it is Jurati, and right, this is what I need. But you're cutting it really close if you need to go now, literally this 1 minute.
Very true.
I'd also like to reference something that I called out in previous episode. For some reason, she started calling him Mr. every other word, and I thought it sounded out of place. It was just to call it back here. They did this on purpose. But it's like, it seems so forced at the time I spotted it, and it's like, I don't think they did the best job, and it just that annoyed me because it was. I even clocked the moment when they used it every other sentence in one episode. It's not really used before or after.
Yeah, they needed like a vocal tick that could assure us that this is Jurati. So
use something which is already there. Don't be lazy.
Yeah, but I don't think there was anything there that it could have been. So,
or at least start it in the first episode. Then
Starfleet. And strictly speaking, in the first season, he wasn't Starfleet. It would be Mr. Picard.
True, yeah.
I'm just saying it's more annoying than when he gets called JP. I don't like
JL.
JL, sorry, JL.
Yeah. And Elnor's alive, so that's Q's last gift. So that's nice. And
that was his little bit of extra power because Rios didn't go back.
Nice, yeah. And the Borg are going to temporarily join the Federation.
Which Picard's just got the authority to just go, yeah, sure, why not? Again, it seems a little bit.
It's probably one of them. It's kind of like on Dragon's Den where they go, okay, we'll do the deal. But then after the show's finished filming, you get all the lawyers in and you make sure that this is actually legit before you actually give them your money. So I reckon it's, okay, you mean the Federation.
Well, again, maybe you could just give me a second for one line.
Preliminary membership, just so we can stay here guarding, and that makes
all
sense.
I was asking is like just one line going. It's like, well, I might have to get
we might have to talk
Starfleet to sign up on that, but for now, I'm sure we can allow it. Just some little.
I do love the way they save the day because there's nothing more Star Trek than the fact that these enemies and this whole fleet come together not to create a big weapon to blow something up, but to create a shield to protect everyone.
Yeah,
and I think that's brilliant.
I mean, there's certainly a lot to recommend it, but it's just like, I don't know, I guess like where we've just had this so satisfying joined up story, it felt like just 10 minutes of almost like another
it does
show.
Feel like an epilogue. Yeah. That's really. And Seven gets a field promotion and becomes the captain for a minute, which is nice because it pays off sort of a little bit of an arc we've had for Seven. And then we're back at 10 forward discussing it with Guinan, and like Elliot said, she's got a picture of Rios. She's like, well, you're not very observant. I've had this for years.
Yeah, you're clever, but you're not observant.
Yeah, that was good.
It's always been there.
Oh, it's a lovely warm scene as well. I really love that.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Felt right.
And
just the idea they became buddies and that they hung out, and like it's almost like I don't feel like you need it, but it's almost like you could do a series of what they got up to.
This is where I say Rios needed to stay back in 2024.
Yeah, he's obviously
because he's influenced the Doctor's son to gather all these great people to do something brilliant and save the world. Basically. And I don't think the Doctor's son would have done that if she'd just stayed working in that clinic. She would have gone on this Doctor for Humanity thing all over the world.
Yeah,
and I've got to admit they kind of sold it pretty well. I wasn't sure I felt about it to begin with, but I did like it. The idea that he dies in a bar fight chomping a cigar because he died how he is, and like that's quite on Star Trek, but it kind of works in this instance.
And I like the sort of hint that Guinan says that sort of her and Renee and Rios and Teresa all became mates for a while.
Yeah, he says I can't remember the Doctor's son's name.
No, I can't.
But like she goes, he's Auntie Renee, what she brought back from Europa.
Yeah.
So but she'd obviously seen Rios at the gala.
Yeah.
So he's maybe made a point of seeing her afterwards.
Yeah, they all
tracked him down afterwards, and she's realised what's going on. Like you say, she has to have seen Talon engage the cloak on her face, so she does believe that it's from the future and all this stuff going on.
Yeah,
and you've also got the kind of like just lovely thing of Guinan, of course, exists across so many centuries. So of course she's had all these lives. So it just allows for her to say, "Yeah, we had a great life together. I had a great time being such close friends."
They were
with them.
lovely people.
Yeah, it's
Really
beautifully
nice.
so nice.
And Picard then we finish, goes back to Laris, and it's implied that they're gonna rekindle what might have been there at the start of the season. Which is,
yeah,
I
we
think,
didn't get the
nice
kiss.
thing.
We should have had a kiss between them two at the end.
Yeah,
probably.
that's what I did miss. I thought, like, yeah, he has this big breakthrough moment. He's gone through so much. Oh, by the way, just a quick nod. I did love also the fact that he's coming back with his nice glass of red and then gets a shot for Elnor.
Yeah. I don't know
sorry,
if this is a TV thing because they do seem to try and avoid having older people kissing, and it's like, oh, come on, we're all grown ups. It's fine.
Yeah, and this whole story has been about him being emotionally open. So Kiss would have been a brilliant expression of that.
It wouldn't be. Maybe they're saving it for next season. But talking of next season, then there's been a lot come out about the cast and everything like that. Obviously, we know the next gen cast are coming in. Alison Pill said that Jurati, she won't be appearing next season. Elnor said he's not going to be in next season. Soji said she's not going to be in next season. And I
can't see Rios being in next season.
No, Rios isn't. So I could see Rios and Jurati. But having said that, if Jurati's there as like
the gatekeeper,
wall, we need to see Jurati.
I'm just going to stab and
I
dab.
can see
When they
Soji
say they're
not
not
being in. Soji not being in makes sense because right at the beginning we had her off on a diplomatic stuff.
Yeah, but again, I won't mind her cropping up in a guest role.
Yeah, I'm guessing when they say they're not in it, I'm going to guess that they're not in it main, but I reckon they're all going to get cameos. Somewhere.
Well,
they're going to have ways of.
They've all said that emphatically not in it at all, but whether it's I hope it's misdirection because I definitely think Elnor deserves another crack at the whip after.
But the fact that he was in it so less, I think the way they managed to weave everyone else into dual roles and stuff, I think that was probably a work commitment. So that's probably why he's not available for the next one. Because with a 3-series arc, you've got to look at the next step that you're going to do.
I think that's literally haven't been able to get into all the filming.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that going on.
Well, that's quite possible as well.
Where they could.
But I wonder if some other bit of work came up maybe during. I don't know. It just seems like as he's a younger actor, he's got his career ahead of him, so he's got to look to what happens after a 3-series order.
Yeah, I just think it'd be a shame if all them characters are done for now. But then I think we're finding out with the expansion of the Star Trek universe that no one's necessarily done. They can appear in other places. And spin-offs, and Alex Kurtzman's talked about just doing an anthology where anybody can pop up any episode. So
why not?
We may guys.
I also think probably they are at the point where they're going, it's like, we're going to provide money for all these next generation legacy crew, and we've got all these paychecks here. Maybe thin it out a little bit with these stories which are kind of finished.
I'd love an anthology series. Because a lot of these loose end episodes that we've had and all that, and like the Traveler's been answered now, but if we hadn't had that, you could have an anthology one just to show a little bit of what happened with Wesley.
Yeah.
And there's loads of these sort of bits where we haven't got answers to what's happened after. And you could just and they probably only need one episode to
definitely.
Bring back Voyager for the final episode they should have had back on Earth and how they
that would be good, actually, So overall, then, I mean, I thought the finale delivered in just about every conceivable way.
Yeah.
I think it's been a fantastic season of TV. It's shown what you can do with a serialized Star Trek show.
Yeah.
It's a very high bar for season 3.
It set a high bar for the rest of Star Trek live action.
I'll also give you the fact that season 3 was filmed back to back with season 2 gives me a lot more hope. So if it's the same production crew, we're happy days. Like these guys have
made that when it's shot back to back, that all these cast members are going, no, we're definitely not in season 3.
Well, that
shot it back to back.
Well, yeah, but that makes you wonder: is it a deliberate story decision that we're gonna wrap up their acts in season 2 so that we can focus on other things season 3?
As much as I'd enjoy a Rios cameo, that seemed like the perfect ending for him.
Yeah, Rios.
Yeah.
I'm happy with Rios.
Rios, I'm happy with him.
And Soji, I felt like her story was already over in series 1. Whereas at the beginning, where they go, she's off on a book tour, I felt like there's nowhere really else to
and
go
then
with that.
the character that they brought in for this time, we let her go off as a traveller, which is a nice end for her.
Yeah. Elnor would have been nice, but again, I just get, I know, I got a feeling maybe the quarantine, I'm sure, did play a part, but also I reckon he's got something.
Yeah, I'd like to see Raffi and Seven, and notably, they've not said that they're not appearing, so we'll see. So, should we move on to Strange New Worlds then?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I think, are we all done with Picard?
I think for now. I mean,
it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
It's been a really, really excellent season, and the finale didn't disappoint.
No, I agree.
It delivered pretty much everywhere we wanted it to.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I'm just going to add is that we've talked a lot about what Patrick Stewart got to do in this, but John Delancey, some of the notes he's got to play that he hadn't had the opportunity before. There's a bit where Picard hugs him, and it's Picard hugging him to begin with, and it's just a second of him feeling the power of that hug before he hugs back.
If you notice as well,
those beautiful moments.
John Delancey, how he's hugging Picard. John Delancey's almost got that parent look, like he is hugging a child.
Yeah, but there's a second before he returns the hug, which is just
that's like the cue being godlike. I'm happy to hug you, but I'm your parent hugging you.
Yeah. I just think he seemed very surprised by the hug in a moment, and that just seemed beautiful. It seemed beautiful.
I think Q genuinely did this for altruistic reasons. It wasn't a setup to go, I'm going to make it so you don't die alone so that you can make it so I don't. And I think he was genuinely moved by the fact that Picard was like, no.
Yeah, it was almost like he wasn't considering his own death in that moment. He was considering returning them home, and he's dying in the process, as opposed to his death being the thing that's primarily happening here. And Picard brought it back to him, and like, you're not dying alone. Isn't that the point?
Yeah. Exactly. Great stuff. So, Strange New Worlds then. And yeah, it had a lot to live up to after that Picard finale. But I think this is really solid, some really good stuff. And I think, crucially, it's exactly what everybody's been saying they've wanted. So if the people who've been complaining that we want old style Star Trek back, we want Mission of the Week, we want this, we want that, this is exactly what you asked for. So there's like much complaining about it.
Like a lot of the fandom menace have got rid of even seeing the stuff now. But there's a couple still pop up on me feeds and all that. But they have been saying this is Star Trek. They've been into it, so they have come round. The ones who've been complaining have actually come round. Well, and I think they backed themselves into a corner that if they didn't come round,
they'll find something to moan about.
I did love the
Cox said anything, but he's just a dickhead.
There are a few bits which I've got some issues with, but overall, I love the tone. Did feel like very original Star Trek. I can no argument with that whatsoever.
I've got a few issues, but nothing major.
No,
I've got one major one, and then like it's good place any to jump in.
Yeah,
and it's something which I've raised when we saw Mr. Peck in Discovery as Spock. Mm-hmm. I think they over-emotionalized the Vulcans. They've made them sassy in this one, especially. It did not sit for me. I think that I cannot imagine like I'm not saying that they have to deliver exactly how Leonard Nimoy would, but I could not picture Leonard Nimoy Spock delivering any of these lines, really.
Oh, I don't know. I thought...
Or not many of them. Certainly not in the earlier bit where you got him and his fiancée.
Yeah, T'Pring was very sassy. That is true.
Yeah, and they were sassy.
We're seeing something of Vulcan culture that we've never been exposed to before. And it is actually another part of the mating ritual.
Yeah, okay. I mean, because in the bits we have seen, they certainly don't seem as sassy and they don't seem as like one-linery. And there was... Like, it's a bit later on in the episode, but there's a line where he goes like, just for the record, I'm not a fan of this. And it's like, that's an emotional human line. That's not a Vulcan line.
Yeah.
I did not appreciate the take on Vulcans in this.
To be fair, in the cage, Spock does it.
Yeah, he does. That's
show
true.
a lot more
Yeah,
emotion than what we've seen later on. So maybe you're seeing a bit of that where he hasn't really embraced his Vulcan. He still has his human self comes out.
I don't know. Maybe I'll
which does fit in with canon, that he's more emotional at this period.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I enjoy Ethan Peck's performance, and I can see a lot.
I like his performance. His acting, I'm not having an issue with. It's the writing for me, so I should clarify.
I can see a lot of Zachary Quinto's performance in him, which is not a bad thing. But yeah, so this episode then, we start with Una giving a voiceover, which we later find out's a log. And you get this thing of, it looks like present-day Earth, but it's not. It's actually an alien planet, and there's a Federation ship there. It's a nice setup. And then we cut to Pike, who's watching The Day the Earth Stood Still, which is interesting. Is The Day the Earth Stood Still is about an alien species that make first contact expressly to interfere with the development of a culture because they want to stop us blowing ourselves up. And that obviously ties in very much to what we get for the rest of this episode. So I thought that was a clever little nod. And Pike's, I don't know if it's his girlfriend or whether it's a casual thing, but I like the fact that she's like, oh, you're not watching this again.
Yeah, that was nice. I like right from the start. You've got that feeling of Pike.
The thing where she says you're not watching this again makes it so that it's not just casual, like someone that is familiar with.
Yeah, well, it's like I get the feeling it's a really good friends with benefits, maybe a little.
Yeah, that's
they do have this.
I get the impression that it's like they're both in Starfleet, the captains, to go off on missions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to have a normal relationship with someone outside of Starfleet. They're both captains, so they don't want the relationship on the ship because that can produce complications. They get back to Earth. If they're at Earth at the same time, that's when they hook up.
You've just explained friends with benefits. That's all you've done. In other words,
But to me, it makes perfect sense as them both being captains that this is what they do.
I do. And I just thought the intimacy and the way it was played was just really nice. It's
like,
you don't feel like you had to over-explain it to get, like, I think we've all picked up on what that relationship is.
Yeah. I thought this was a good sort of reintroduction to Pike. Like, we don't need to do a lot of the heavy lifting that we usually do in a pilot episode because we've had the season of Discovery, we've had the pilot episode in 1965. So, we've had the cage. We can just pick up with him where
it is. We've had the season of Pike already.
I also think the there's natural sassiness to his delivery of Pike, which seems to fit in with the earlier. The earlier performance wasn't really that sassy, but seems to be an extrapolation from that performance. But I really like that. I think he should have been the sassy character. I think they made too many people sassy, is my opinion. In this episode, Pike was wonderfully sassy. You've got Spock being sassy, though, which Spock isn't a sassy character. And you've got Chaplin, who's very sassy.
That's maybe part of his command style, though, the way that he's familiar with his crew and says things that makes them
comfortable with Pike. I think that fits Pike beautifully. I think it fits him better than it did Spock, for instance, for me.
Yeah, with the sequence with Spock, I mean, I think we need to watch a mock time again to see if this contradicts anything we've previously been told, but I genuinely can't remember. I know that they were betrothed to each other
as children.
So, does this mean? And what's interesting, though, is this is probably 7 years before a mock time. So this would be his previous Pomfar. So it makes sense that he's back on Vulcan to get his end away. But a bit that, didn't quite sit right with me is when Pike radios through and she just goes, oh, hi, Chris. No, he was just about to get naked. And it's like, so Pike knows Spock's girlfriend, like considering how secretive he is with Kirk. The fact that she's on first name terms with Pike just seems a little bit unusual.
Well, this is that other thing where in the cage we saw that Spock was emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he's got on top of his Vulcan side of being closed in.
No,
at this point. And that's why he is still familiar with people and they know a lot more about him.
But you see, there's one of two things there. There's either the fact that you, at this time, you're taking away that struggle between his Vulcan and his human half because he's just being very human, or along the way you've got to make him more traditionally Vulcan, which like what? Who hurts him to do that? You know what I mean? It's just I don't know.
We'll get the answer to that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that they're being very true to what we've seen in canon.
You see, I don't because it's not.
I
just
have no problem with Spock at this time being more emotional than what we saw.
Let me just
in the original series.
My counter argument to that is though they're not just doing it with Spock. If they just did it with him, you could argue that, but they've done it with his dad. Was very sassy. Goes like play nice. That Vulcans don't talk like like that. You've got his fiance who. Like was certainly portrayed. I know we only saw her amok time, but certainly portrayed as a very pie-faced, very kind of like withdrawn, very traditional Vulcan. She's now sassy. So every Vulcan sassy. Like even like perhaps you'd like to take this summer private. What an excellent idea! It doesn't feel uniquely Vulcan in any way. I feel like it's just it loses what that race is.
This does explain though why she goes off with someone else by the time we get to amok time. It's like they've just got engaged, but he buggers off with Pike as soon as Pike calls. So I can understand
I like that.
Why she's not feeling fulfilled from Spock. Pike then, in a shuttle, approaching the Enterprise, doesn't last as long as it does in the motion picture.
8 hours.
I was thinking...
It'd be very hard. I think as much as we'd love to see another thing like that, I don't think you'd put 5 or 6 minutes of flying around the Enterprise in a TV episode.
It'd
45 minutes.
It'd have to be a 2-part episode, wouldn't it, if we were going to do that?
Probably a 3-parter, to be fair.
And then we get the first hint really early on. It says, we've requested Lieutenant Kirk, but he's not arrived yet. And I thought this was a brilliant way to play with expectations because we've all seen the announcement that Kirk's going to be in season 2. And it makes you think, was that to throw us off the scent? And Kirk's actually going to be in season 1. But obviously we'll get to that reveal.
I'll talk about when we get to reveal. I've got mixed feelings on that.
And
this has opened up another episode I need to watch.
Yeah. One thing I didn't expect is that we keep getting these flashes of Pike seeing his future self.
Yeah.
I didn't expect them to lean so heavily into that. Just because the thing that everyone responded to so much with Pike when he was in Discovery was the positivity and the energy and the charisma. And making him more of a haunted character, I think, maybe would detract from that, but I'm intrigued to see where they go with it.
Well, I think they've actually already dealt with a lot of that during this episode.
They definitely
and that, and I think, like, you've had him where he's obviously been at Kirk's ranch in Montoya for the last how many ever months it is. Jennifer has been getting refit.
Yeah.
Sort of brooding. And it does that. It's a bit like when they did Family after Best of Both Worlds, where they took the time to sort of explore what the trauma causes instead of just moving on.
Well, what I'm really hoping,
it has traumatized him. He's not only seen it, and he explains during the episode that he felt what it did to him. He felt the pain. He didn't just see what happened to him. He felt it, and it has traumatized him. And it's right that you would feel trauma from that. You wouldn't just move on.
No,
during Discovery, he was halfway through the mission and he just got on and finished the mission.
I think what I'd like to see is what you were kind of alluding to, James, is that I like the idea that they're going to continue this on for a few episodes as opposed to like Discovery when they dealt with PTSD. I don't think they really like they did it in one episode and then it's better kind of thing. It didn't feel like really.
Well, they hinted that it was ought to be a big thing.
Yeah,
because it had build up, and better.
Yeah,
and I didn't feel that was satisfying. Hopefully, they've learned that lesson with the way they deal with Pike's trauma. It seems like that's going to be a runner. Yeah, I also love the fact that he just anyone who asks, it's like, what happened to you out there? Classified. It's classified.
Yeah.
In other words, I just don't want to talk about it.
He does
So
talk.
it is classified.
Well, at the time, yeah.
And he does talk to Spock about it though, because Spock was there, so Spock is part of the Discovery cover-up that's going on. So it's nice that they are forming that bond with Pike and Spock, like we had with Kirk and Spock, and
it also explains why Spock was willing to go back for Pike in Menagerie.
Yes,
and put his career at risk.
Yeah, it adds so much to the Menagerie that he's doing this for his captain because he knows that he's had this hanging over him and he wants to give him a happy ending to his. Yeah, it adds so much to that.
It does. I mean, even then, there's moments like, hope I'm not overstepping. It's like, you're drunken. They overstep all the time. Just enjoy it.
And I like the Noonien Singh character. I think she's really interesting. And I like that already we've got a much better idea of her than we have of any of the supporting Discovery cast.
I've been thinking that all week. I've had one episode of Strange New Worlds, and I feel like some of the crew are coming in and they're covering roles that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
But there's new crew members, and I'm sort of, I already know you.
This was obviously her episode, you know. I mean, obviously, primarily it's a Pike episode, but she's the featured guest star, and we do get a lot about her in this episode, which I really like.
Yeah, but it's been very clever as this episode because we've got a story. It's in a two-parter. It's only 45 minutes. Of every other episodic Star Trek that we've had a feature-length episode as the pilot.
Yeah, true.
So this has done it in 45 minutes. We've been introduced to most of the crew. Plus, we've had a good story. All wrapped up in 45 minutes. It's a big ass.
I also think the way they did it was because they'd already sort of backdoor piloted it through Discovery. It meant you could do a sort of like it's almost like a classic setup for a Star Trek episode. It's like one of the crew members have been kidnapped. We've got to go to the rescue. There's a captain who isn't sure if he's ready to take the helm again. Like it's a classic kind of setup.
We already know Una, who's been kidnapped, as the number one. We already know Spock. We've been introduced to him. We're fully aware what Pike's like. So you've got the other characters around them.
Yeah. And I also love plucky young Uhura. She was fun. Like she was just like, that's cool. Like she's so mousy, and you know that what a powerful character that becomes.
Yeah, she's a cadet. And there's a lovely bit where the alien guy's running around the ship, and he ends up in a turbo lift, and Uhura starts talking to him about local sports, and it just shows that, like, she's into the languages, so she studies the cultures, so she does know. That's why she's got this knowledge, because she's done it.
And that's why she's called a prodigy, because she's picking it up so quick. Yeah. She picks up new
which is great. It's, you know, much as Uhura and Nichelle Nichols were great in the original series, we didn't get a lot of fleshed out character with it. It was at the time, it was monumental.
At the time, it was as much as they could get away with through a woman on TV, in a main role on TV.
It's nice that we're filling out the character, and some of it is sort of informed by what we got in the Kelvin movies, you know, with how amazing Uhura is with languages and everything. So I like that the riffing on that and the building on that. I like that we get a bit of tension between Spock and La'an, where it's go to Red Alert. No, we don't want to go to Red Alert. We get a bit of argy-bargy there. And I like that, crucially, Pike sides with her rather than Spock. Yeah,
like, Spock gives his reasons, and Spock's is by the book, and Spock goes, going to Red Alert could show us as a threat that we're putting on a militaristic pose.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, we've got our crew missing. There's no sign of spacecraft yet. We've got a warp signature down there. Go to Red Alert.
And there's also felt a realness of that moment where, like, the captain does get options from different people on the bridge, and then he decides the approach. Like, that felt totally not stepping on anyone or anything. It was just really nicely done. That
he listened to his options and he goes, which is what Picard used to do a lot. It was Picard used to go options, and he'd listen to everyone.
Yeah.
And the thing is, crucially as well, Spock is not a first officer at this stage. He will be, but I wonder.
He's only the science officer.
Yeah, is that going to be a bit of an arc we get for Spock, that he's learning to be a first officer? He's not there yet. And that's a take on Spock that we've not had, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, so we get kind of a twist. So it's not a warp drive they've made, it's a warp bomb that they've made.
Yeah.
Which, as Spock himself says, we've never had that before, and we've never had that before in Star Trek. So that's nice.
But I like how he goes. How he says we got the hydrogen bomb, and that's what normally happens when you split the particle. But that wasn't necessarily where the journey could go.
Yeah,
it's that's what's always happened so far.
I also love the fact that it sort of speaks to something which some people have said about like the way the laws are laid down in America specifically, and the way they don't cover certain things. And some said it's like, because they never thought they'd need to have a rule about this. And it felt like that was the same thing with the warp thing. It's like, whoever thought you needed to have a rule, which meant it's like, but if they do a warp bomb first, you shouldn't give them the thing.
It's a good,
no one would have thought to stipulate that.
It's a good spin on all the first contact stories we've had before, and it adds a sense of urgency to it and a sense of danger to it. And speaking of character introduction, then, so we meet Benga and Chapel, and I like all their stuff. Again, we don't get a huge amount of them, but the fact that they set up the captain knows the Doctor, it feels like, are we gonna be establishing like a troika like we had with Kirk, Spock? Now.
And I like the fact that Nurse Chapel at the time is just a civilian. She isn't in Starfleet yet.
Yeah. But she apparently did invent the let's make us look like aliens when we go down to planets technology, which we use.
Which also ties into the motion picture when McCoy beams back up and goes, I'm going to need new medical staff. Chapel's a doctor off on so-and-so now.
Yeah.
She's a lot more, she's moved up.
She's worked her way through the ranks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another one of our sassy characters with her. Like, they like their sass on this show. That's all I'm saying.
It's definitely very sassy. That's true.
Which is kind of like, again, it's interesting how you're going to go from there. Like, the obvious one is with her. Again, she's kind of quite quiet and shy, and I feel like we're going to see her come into herself. But with the likes of Chapel, like, why does she become more quiet when she gets older? Like, is there going to be something that she
almost
is
like
overconfident in?
It's almost like she's looked at Majel Barrett and she's playing Loxwana.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, again, if they justify it correctly, fair enough. But it's just, I'll be interested to see if they do tie it in with the character, because we did see Nurse Chapel quite a bit.
Yeah, she's called Nurse Chapel, but she's not yet recognizable as the Nurse Chapel that we know. But we'll see if we get there. It's early days. I like during the away team mission, we get to have fun with transporters. First, we get the thing where she's telling Spock to do the nerve pinch, and it takes him he's a little bit slow on the uptake. But then it's like
pinch his neck, pinch his neck.
And then it's like, right, we'll beam him up, and then what else can we do with beaming? We can beam some eye drops.
Well, no, we get that. We program the transporter. For your clothes when you beam down.
Yes.
So it's not to change your clothes.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. But
it does make a lot of sense because I know that we've had episodes where we've seen them change beforehand, but there's so many episodes where they've gone beam down now, and we assume that it's a minute later, and they are in new native clothes of where they've been to.
I feel like this is overstepping a little bit because we haven't seen that really before.
No. That was the thing, like that, and the beaming. It's the sort of thing which, it's like, because I know you've always got to make the technology look good, even if it's prior to other stuff we've seen. I get that. I get a little bit of playing fast and loose with that. But like you say, it felt a little out of keeping to have that ability, and also to beam something into someone's eye. That's really.
Well, what you don't see, it's actually like the bat poles in the Batman TV series. So when they're beaming down, they hit a switch, and then.
We've even got to the point where they've got
the bat pole, you flick a switch for your clothes and it changes.
But we've even got this bit where, like, suddenly, because they needed to for the plot, the medical bay's got a transport. Because, sure, okay.
emergency medical transport. That makes sense.
Yeah, we never saw that on Kirk's Enterprise, so
No.
maybe it'll have to break down before the end of the season.
Yeah,
that was the thing. Even in TNG, beaming intership beaming was always meant to be, it's really risky. You don't want to be doing that. But again, so the rescue Una and Lan. I keep saying, is it Lan or Lan? Anyway, knows her, and this sets up the payoff at the end where Pike's going to have a chat with her and everything. So I like that they're establishing this relationship between different members of the crew so that we can get a handle on where it's all going to go. I quite like the fun they have with like Spock's ears changing when they're in the lift, and then he's like, "I'm in intense pain, Captain," and then he just breaks down and screams, and the guy comes off. And then we find out, this is all the Federation's fault, basically, because they had that big battle at the end of season 2. They could all see the warp signatures, and they've...
Yeah, it's only a light year away, so with the telescopes they could...
Yeah, so they've seen
look at it, and they can work out the frequencies and all that, which...
Can we recreate that? Turns out we can, but it's very bloody dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, so... I like that idea. I think that's, it riffs on, even going back to the original series, like where you had them arming, like you had the Klingons arming people with gunpowder guns, and it was like, that's taking the technology too fast, too soon, and it's dangerous. And then Pike officially becomes one of our Star Trek captains because he says, "Screw General Order 1. He's in good company. I know it's not the Prime Directive yet. In fact, that name's not even going to catch on, according to Pike.
Yeah, it'll never stick.
That's very cutesy.
But screw General Order. Which he's been watching too much Day the Earth Stood Still. So, in fact, he definitely has, because the next thing he says is "Take me to your leader." So he obviously likes sort of 50s science fiction.
It also felt appropriate to where he is. Like, he's at a point where he's kind of like struggling with this. So if he's going to do this, he's going to do it on his own terms.
Yeah. It is one of those great stories where it's like you can't just be bound by the rule book. You've got to think outside the box and find a solution that's going to do the least harm, even if that means bending the rules or breaking the rules. And he comes clean to the aliens. He's got a great line where he says, like, debate and conversation are the way that you deal with things, not by killing each other.
And she basically goes, "No, screw that. We're going to blow them up."
Yeah, no, we don't have a big fight. What are you talking about? And
like she says, "Who has the biggest stick wins?" And he goes, and it like take him away, and he shouts over, "Communicator, emergency."
And that's what gives him the idea. He's like, right, okay, well, who's got biggest stick then?
Yeah.
It's also wonderful, kind of like you say, it's a different take on First Contact. The idea that, as opposed to just this wonderful ceremonial thing, they've reached the right moment, or they've accidentally found something out. I mean, okay, they did accidentally find something out, but I love the idea that they're going down a bad path. We're going to use this. We're going to show them what better they could do. It seemed very lovely in like Star Trek.
If you follow General Order 1, you'd have to leave and let them all kill each other. So I get why he decides to intervene. And the idea that the fact that an alien turning up is what causes the planet to come together, that's exactly what happens to humanity in the Star Trek universe. Yeah. So that all makes perfect sense. Then we do get a bit more about La'an, where we get this backstory, like the Gorn founder, and they ate everyone, and then they sent her out on her own. Pretty dark stuff.
Yeah, and they weren't afraid of a
planet.
They weren't afraid of a dark backstory in this episode. Let's just say, like they had Pike is haunted by what's going to happen to him. Her family got eaten by the Gorn. I mean, it's some bleak moments in this, or bleak backstories.
Absolutely. And then this is where we're going back to the eugenics wars. Then, so Pike gives a little video presentation of human history from basically now until Star Trek time. So,
well, it started in 2021, didn't he? Beginning of 2021 is
Well,
the
yeah.
skeleton started.
I mean, they explicitly show the Capitol riots,
Yeah.
which I thought was, I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to upset a certain portion of the family.
Oh no!
be fair,
Are we going to lose the rioters from the Capitol riot? Oh no!
Yeah, let's be fair. There's a bunch of right-wing idiots who like to slag Star Trek off, and the people who do the shows, I'm going to say, must watch the Star Trek to be able to say what they come out with. But the audience doesn't. They just go along with what they say about it all being
That's true.
woke. So they've gone, look, you have to slag us off anyway, so fuck you. Here's what you lot did.
Yeah,
look,
and
this is you lot.
that's the
This
thing.
is you idiots.
That's the thing, because a lot of the time, like with the whole ice thing in Picard, they were saying, oh, they're not portraying ice fairly, and they're trying to say that ice are things that they're not. What they're portraying here is a bunch of insurrectionists who tried to take over the government and hang the vice president. If that's not trying to start a civil war, I don't know what is. So speculating that an outcome of that could have been a second American Civil War, absolutely it could have been.
Yeah.
You know, so it's interesting that they've chosen to do that. But then Pike says, and that became the eugenics war, and that became World War III. So we have finally sort of conflated World War III and the eugenics wars, and we've repositioned them slightly by going, actually, they happened a little bit later than what we've said higher in Star Trek history. But doing that, I know people will say, well, look, they said in Space Seed it was in the 90s, we shouldn't change it. But it actually fixes so many more continuity errors than it causes, because there's only one instance of them saying definitively the eugenics wars happened in the 90s. But we've got all sorts of time travel, like in Future's End, in Voyager, and things like that, which contradicts that. That's why we've had to come up with all these fan fiction backstories and go, well, actually, the eugenics wars were a secret thing and no one realized they were going on. And just putting the marker down now and going, no, okay, forget that.
Eugenics wars haven't happened yet in the future.
That fixes so many more things that I think we need to just let it go, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sure Enterprise, doesn't Enterprise at all reference it being like that? I'm sure.
It references it in the, what do you call it, the augment stories, but I may be wrong, but I don't remember it giving a specific date.
I don't think it gives a year.
But the fact that that's happening then means it's got to happen later, surely.
The eugenics wars will happen, but they've always said, well, they said in Space Seed they happened in the 90s. But let's be fair, quite oblique about it, I think.
When Space Seed came out, Space Seed was what, 1967, 68?
66, 67,
Yeah. They had no idea that 30 years on, Star Trek would still be a massive thing culturally.
No, exactly. 96 was a nice time.
So 30 years in future from when you're making a show was nice and easy to do. The fact that Star Trek is still massive and culturally important and relevant and still ongoing, approaching 60 years later, you then have a problem when you've named dates.
I mean, like sci-fi now as a whole tends to set it further in the future because they know that TV doesn't always just last for 5 minutes.
I think that's something we've got to do. Now that we've officially retconned it and gone, okay, the eugenics wars will happen sometime in the mid to late 2020s. In 10 years' time, we can't change it again. We've got to go, okay, this is the point that our universe and the Star Trek universe diverged. If we're actually putting the marker down now and saying definitively this is what happens, we can't just keep retconning it every time we catch up now. At some point, we've got to go. Yeah,
which is the problem that you've got when you have a show that is like Star Trek. Which there's very few shows that ever do something like what Star Trek's done with its longevity and how it's come back for a third time. For a fourth time, actually, it's come back because we had... In fact, no, fifth time because we had the original series, then the movies, then Next Gen, Then we have the new movies. Now we've got this new age of Trek. So
it's
come back so many times. That doesn't happen normally.
No, it doesn't. And, you do have to adapt. And I know technically it's contradicting some stuff that's gone before. But when you're in a position that you've got so much continuity and so much continuity that contradicts itself, you've got to do the best you can to patch over it. And I do think this is the best decision. Not least because I want the Adam Sung Mix Khan TV show. Also featuring Wesley and Corey and Captain Giorgio.
And Rios can pop into that.
Rios can come in,
And now we're onto this. So, like with Adam, Adam Sung, is it his son we see in Enterprise?
No, or his grandson, wouldn't it?
It'd be would be his grandson or great grandson.
At least his grandson, yeah.
Just curious.
I think
Enterprise is set in.
You can just Google the Sung family tree, but the problem is it's just 100 pictures of Brent Spiner, so it's not actually that helpful.
Make it just slightly different.
And then Pike says, "Why don't you join the Federation?" So this week we're just giving out Federation memberships left, right, and centre.
Well, I think that they did do that to an extent earlier on,
and I think it's justified in this context because it's like, well, now that we've given you this technology, we need to keep an eye on you. And the best way to do this is to
make you part of us.
Yeah. And I love the montage we get after that, where it's like, this is the impact that joining the Federation has. And you see him teaching the science in schools. And it does show this is how much of an inspiration the Federation and Starfleet can be. And I just love that.
And something we didn't tackle from near the beginning as well is where they first see the Enterprise, and it's almost like it feels like present day Earth if first contact happened. It was just so beautifully done. It's like what the hell is that? And we all recognize it as the Enterprise. Then you go into the Enterprise. Oh, it's so nice.
It's great. So I like the wrap up to the story of the week. I think that's done really well. I like that you get that scene with Laan talking to Pike again, and he says that where he says you didn't trust. You thought I wouldn't trust you, so you chose not to trust me. I think that's a really good line. And then he shows he's trusting her, where he's like, no, you're going to be my chief of security now. So I liked all of that. And then we get the Kirk reveal. So
well, I liked when they're back to space stock, and there's the big domes up there of trees. And he goes, during the Third World War, scientists launched these domes up to try preserve some of the plant life.
Yeah.
And it just grew too big. They couldn't bring it back down.
Yeah.
So Starfleet built its first base around it.
See, 2 episodes aired on the same day and were both referencing the Third World War and the eugenics wars. I just feel like something's brewing here. I may be totally wrong, but it just feels like we're putting the pieces in place.
We're putting the pieces in place. And they maybe are putting the pieces in place and maybe realise with the eugenics wars, they've got 2 options to either keep moving the date of when it happens to sort of keep our world and Star Trek world in the same universe, or they admit that the Star Trek universe is different to ours and they do the eugenics wars.
I say just do it. Let's have a young guy going around and let's cast an Indian actor as Khan rather than having a Mexican actor with brown face or a white actor.
We can get a Mexican to consult of how there should be culturally.
Let's just throw caution to the wind and say let's have Khan Noonien Singh played by an Indian actor. I think
I completely agree, but like a Mexican actor at least was better than white Khan. I'm sorry, that was just painful to me.
Ricardo Montalban, and I'm not condoning blackface, brownface, any of that, but Ricardo Montalban's one of them. Like, if you can get him for a role, give him the role. It doesn't matter what it is.
Well, also, I feel like it is a closer match. And again, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying it just seems like an extra level of insult to the people who've got all the roles, which are white people historically, to give them one of the characters especially seems a worse crime.
Yeah.
If you're fudging other people's ethnicity, it's not great, but it's a
Yeah.
little bit better. It's a little less insidious than going, well, the guy's named Khan. Of course, Benedict Cumberbatch could play him.
Yeah, I mean, there were circumstances behind that he was cast last minute sort of thing, but also you could have probably found an Indian actor at last minute. Anyway, let's not relitigate Into Darkness too much. Samuel Kirk then, so that's the revelation. He walks on, he's got a blue shirt on, he's got a tash. I thought it was a good gag.
No, you see, to me, it's a good gag, and there's a part of me which certainly, like, it made me think of a lot of the older books where they had Robert April, and you had as the captain, and then you had Kirk's dad. I think was security usually in those books, or certainly in one of them that I read. I remember,
Yeah.
and you had young Kirk coming on the ship at one stage. It was just all very good and well. It's the idea now, though. The only thing which slightly, I don't know, it just like. Spock's then had a relationship with Kirk's dad before he has a relationship
that's a
with
bit
Kirk.
weird.
No, this is his brother.
His brother.
Sam's
Is his brother? I thought it was meant to be his dad. Sorry.
No, it's his brother.
The reason he's got the silly tash is because his brother was played by William Shatner with a silly tash. In
Right,
the
sorry,
original series, so it's a gag related to that.
I completely fluffed that. I thought it was meant to be his dad.
No,
on
Sam's
there.
his
Sorry,
brother.
sorry, of course
What?
it is Samuel Kirk. Sorry, yeah.
If it had been Chris Hemsworth, it would have been his dad, and they probably couldn't afford him. So
Well, that's true. That's why that film never happened, because they wanted to pay the money they paid him for a cameo when he wasn't Thor yet.
yeah,
Pay him the same
two
now.
guys
It's like,
wanted too much money, but anyway,
You think they should have signed him up for multiple films for sequels?
always sign people
Yeah.
up for multiple films.
in fairness, though, like when people say it's like, oh, he wanted too much money. No, he wanted to be paid for what he's worth.
Yeah, he wanted
That's
to be paid for what 2020 Chris Hemsworth is worth, which is a damn sight more than what 2009 Chris Hemsworth's worth, you know.
And if you think about it, they put so much work into their career and building up a prestige. Yeah, they want to get paid. Fair play.
Absolutely. No, I'm all for actors getting paid what they... I mean, I think
Like,
what
to
actors
be
get
fair,
paid is obscene, but living within that framework...
Like, I
you should-
don't mind the guys that these actors, and they do get paid mega money for these blockbusters, and fair play to them. Why should the studios get all the money?
Yeah.
But I also like how a lot of these actors do smaller films to do make appearances and not earn a lot.
No, they will do, yeah, absolutely.
Because he still does. Is it Chris Hemsworth who still does Broadway plays?
It might do. I'm not sure. I think a lot
Or
of
is
them
that
do.
Chris Pine?
A lot of them do that thing where it's like one for the studio and me bank balance, and then one for me that I get what I want, sort of thing. Anyway, and then the episode finishes, I think, really well with Pike basically restating the mission and giving us
and Robert April had to pull all the strings that he possibly could to not court-martial him for breaking general order for the reason.
But yeah, it's one of them that like, well, we can't admit that we made a balls of it, so we can't really bollock you for fixing it the way you did. So, yeah.
There's also that lovely feel of like, you get the feeling that the like, in Kirk's time, for instance, that it's more of a kind of casual relationship. There's a bit more fast and loose with the rules, more mirroring the kind of maybe the attitudes of the 60s. So kind of this feels in keeping with that, which is really nice. It's kind of a bit of a callback to, you know what, I got you covered. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Admiral's got you covered.
We do need him to do some time travel to fit in with every other captain.
No, yes, I'm sure. Absolutely. I think we might give it a break for the rest of this season. We've just got a full time travel season, but you can almost guarantee that Pike will get to do a bit of time travel at some point. So that's Strange New Worlds then.
And we still haven't met all the new characters.
No, we've got the
We've still got the new engineer who's just beamed up at the end.
Yeah.
The White Orion.
Yeah, the Aena.
Kirk's brother we've just seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots to look forward to, I think. And
we haven't met, we got a brief sort of meeting of the con, but we haven't really fully met them. So we've got them to get
the common ops, Ortegas, and then I can't remember what his name is. And we'll get to see more of number one, I'm sure. Yeah,
I'm sure that we're going to know. I'm sure that this crew is going to become very familiar to us very quickly.
Yeah.
Because of how we shredded the crew in Discovery.
Yeah. The great thing about this is as well, like I've enjoyed every episode with Picard saying, what do we think is going to happen next week? Absolutely no point in doing this because we know it's episode of the week. It could be literally anything next week. And
I'm setting my stall out this season because I know it's episodic to try and avoid any spoilers of next week.
Me too. I mean, I know what the title is, which I think gives a clue as to what the plot's going to be, but I've no idea how it's going to work out. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. And next week, we won't go quite as long, so we'll just have one episode to talk about. But
we always knew this was going to be a really long episode.
This was the big one. So,
it has been our 150th, so it has been a special episode.
It's been a special occasion.
As you said that, it just turned 150 minutes. The timing was perfect on that.
There we are. So it's like we planned it all, which we emphatically did not.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week to talk about episode 2 of Strange New Worlds. You can reach us on Twitter at RetrekPod. You can email us retrekpod@gmail.com. But the best place to get us is probably the Facebook group. So just search for Retrek, come and chat with us on there. Dr. Squee, you've got more Dr. Squee show coming up, I assume, this week?
I do. Tomorrow, actually, at 6 o'clock. I'm hoping to bring you... I've got to listen back to it, check it came out okay. But I was at CovCon this weekend. I spoke to, amongst others, the surviving cast of Allo. So hopefully that's going to be the one for tomorrow. But yeah. Cool. Yeah, very fun time.
Right then. So thanks for trekking with us this time. And we'll see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
LLAP.